Good evening.
Yeah, she's going to go back, so you don't have to.
47 million women and girls have been pushed into extreme poverty since the onset of the pandemic. Full gender equality with the present pace that we are in is 300 years away. Equal representation of women in decision-making, 140 years. Now let me take you to the country I belong to, India. In India, 15% of women and girls are living in extreme poverty. A third of girls in the rural areas are unable to complete their secondary education. That's because of early marriage, lack of toilets in schools, distance to the schools, household chores, and of course, social norms. There is a concern that post the pandemic, there is a whole loss of generation of children who may never return to school. These are quite the statistics, aren't they? They overwhelm you. They make you question whether your contribution or whether we are making any impact on the work on the ground. I question myself as well. I really interrogated my position, and it took me some time. There was a lot of despair as well. But here's a perspective that I came up with, and I would like to share with all of you. Beyond these numbers are lives of millions of women and girls. These are lived realities where, despite the challenges that they face, the inequalities that they're confronted with, they still work and dream of a better future. So the idea then is not to get paralyzed. It is to move forward, slowly and steadily. We need to build on the past for a solid future. So we've not waited. Statistics such as the ones that I've mentioned have already galvanized a lot of action on the ground. We have adapted, we have innovated, so that we are able to empower the communities that we are working with. So let me tell you how we are doing what we are doing. In India, the Hunger Project works where we can have one of the biggest impacts. That is with women leaders in village councils. The Constitution of India guarantees 33.33% quotas for women to contest local body elections. And in most of the states, it's around 50% now. Now you can imagine the entire visual narrative that there are 50% of women in decision-making powers. But there is another side to this. Most often than not, most of the women who assume these leadership positions are first-time public office holders. They don't have any support structure. They have limited knowledge. They are confronted with daily challenges on how to navigate a very labyrinth bureaucratic structure at the local level. But that does not stop them. And this is where we come in. The Hunger Project trains these women, the women leaders in these communities, and equip them with adequate skills and knowledge and leadership skills so that they, in turn, can go forward and address the persistent and grave problems of hunger and poverty that they're confronted with in their communities. And since 2001, ladies and gentlemen, we have trained over 190,000 women leaders in village councils. And we have seen, I've been in the Hunger Project for the last 11 odd years now, the remarkable transformation that happens when these women are trainings and the kind of outcomes that they come up with. For instance, in 2021 alone, through the efforts of these women leaders, 195,000 community members benefited in accessing subsidized food grains, which ensures food security for the most vulnerable and the marginalized. No mean feat. So despite these persistent and grave problems, we often wonder, and all of us, my colleagues back home in India as well, that what makes them carry on, because it is quite a challenge. But despite all of this, they wake up every day and they think, what is it that I can do to ensure quality education for all children? What is it I can do that the girls feel safe and secure to go to schools? These are very basic needs. And how do I ensure that nutritious grains are reaching out to the poor and the vulnerable. These women are not ordinary, they are special. And they are resilient and relentless and sometimes very stubborn to endeavor to demand accountability on behalf of those who are unable to do so themselves. We took a step forward, and in 2015, the Hunger Project started engaging with adolescent girls in these rural communities. So the idea behind this is that here you have women leaders, and here you have girls in the rural places, and to bring them together and to deliberately start, induce an intergenerational dialogue. It is also a kind of a safe space for these girls to come forth, speak to their elected women leaders and say, this is my problem, what is it that you can do? So they've become a kind of a support structure. So we have engaged with over 4,000 adolescent girls for the past 7 odd years that we are working with them. We have improved their access and awareness on menstrual hygiene management, on food security, on different scholarship schemes, because we have plethora of schemes out there. One of the biggest challenges and the problems that the communities face is A, lack of information, and also accessibility. And this is where they play a very important role. The women leaders, who are the voice, the connectors of the communities that they represent, as well as the government schemes and provisions which are there. The adolescent girls, once they start attending our workshops, we do leadership building exercises with them as well, and life skills with them. They have exercised their own agency, their own potential, and have also acted as active citizens to not only stop their own marriages, child marriages, which is still a persistent problem in our country, but as well as of their peers. And with great pride and a lot of humbleness, 96% of the adolescent girls who've engaged with our program have continued to remain in school, which is a huge thing for us. 85, thank you. 85% of the girls, when approached for an early marriage, managed to negotiate with their households, with their communities to delay their age of marriage, which means there is a future, there is a possibility for them. I will just now come down to and illustrate some examples of how this is taking place. So the first story that I'm going to share with you is a story of passion, partnership, and perseverance. So this is a photo from one of the states in India, Rajasthan, and this is from a tribal-dominated district called Sirohi. Now, what did we do? What happened here? In 2014-15, in one of the workshops, the women leaders were in a workshop and they observed, and also a lot of the girls came forward and spoke to them, that the distance to the higher education, the college, was quite far away, around 35 miles away, because of which a lot of girls were dropping out of education system, higher education. So what did they do? So the women leaders rallied together, and they were not alone in this. The adolescent girls did not leave all the burden on the women leaders themselves. They supported them. They said, well, tell us what is it that we can do. So it was not easy. It did not happen overnight. For 4 continuous years, they rallied, they petitioned local authorities. The girls sent 5,000 odd postcards to the chief minister of the state. And finally, in 2018-19, a college was sanctioned. This is actually some of the girls who were involved in the campaign. Yeah. Still gives me goosebumps. Presently, there are 375 students in that college, including boys. Now, this is an asset for the community for the generations to come. Now, whether Hunger Project works there or doesn't work there, the college is going to be there. And another thing that we've noticed, and I'm sharing all these examples and experiences with you just to share you that how holistic the strategy is. The other thing that we've noticed is when you get the girls to speak to the women leaders, there is a role modeling effect. They get inspired. They aspire to be like them. And one of the biggest achievements, and in this, it just brought a smile to all our faces when we got to know this. This is in 2020, in one of the local body elections. 7 girls who were part of a program from 2015 onwards, in 2020 elections, when they turned 21 years of age, that's when you can contest the elections, 7 of these young adults went on to become elected women leaders themselves. Right. What does this say? You can totally imagine the kind of agenda that is going to be set. You can totally imagine the kind of effect it will happen on their other peers. And this is a ripple effect that we are seeing. So when we say future is calling, sometimes the future is already here. And finally, I would just like to share one more story with you. And this is of Lakshmi Bheel. Lakshmi is one of the same president, 23-year-old. This is Lakshmi. She's from Rajasthan. And she is from a marginalized community in India. She contested elections for the first time. This photo is actually from the counting day. This is around 10 p.m. at night. I was there. We clicked this photo from across one of the houses. And you can see that the public space is completely dominated with men. Elections, the results were announced. The counting took place. Lakshmi won the elections by a very narrow margin. And in this, she got full support from her other friends. Her symbol was a balloon. So, and I remember I was on the campaign trail. I was just trying to, meet her, talk to her. What is it? What drives you? And she had so many stories. Her friends were full on gung-ho about her campaign as well. So we asked, why balloons? So they were like, it's so boring otherwise. We need to have something which has more color. As simple as that. So Lakshmi said, after she won the elections, what is it? What do you dream about from your village? And I'll quote, "Children of this village have to travel long distance to pursue higher education. As a result, many drop out. For girls, the situation becomes even more dire as they are forced into early and child marriage. I want to ensure a complete stop is put to this harmful practice. Apart from the education, I also want to focus on healthcare and ensure people have access to basic amenities in the villages." And this is Lakshmi during her campaign trail. In the end, all I would like to say is this. Given the complex and dynamic nature of issues that we are confronted with today, we do need a more collaborative approach to tackle it. And as global citizens, we all have a responsibility to play, you and me. And we all have a role to play. Dealing with human potential does take time. Positive change takes time. But it is not impossible. And having worked with women leaders and adolescent girls in rural areas, we have seen how their lives have improved for the better so that they're able to address those persistent issues of hunger and poverty that they're confronted with. And we need to continue with this engagement to empower these communities so that they can navigate their own future with dignity, self-respect, and well-being that they all deserve. Ladies and gentlemen, we are living in a state of flux. Our external environment is constantly changing, case in point, the pandemic. What matters is for us to keep our focus, an eye on the present for the future. The time is now. We all need to restart, refresh, and be impatient. We need to do better, and we need to do more. I would like to leave you with a thought for this evening, and it's by an Irish poet called Seamus Heaney. Hope is not an optimism which expects things to turn out well, but something rooted in the conviction that there is good worth working for. Thank you.